Okay, you can go now.
Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. I didn't notice, do we have minutes to approve? I didn't see or recall an email there.
I think so. Last month, we do have minutes from the October meeting. Did anyone see them, or do you want me to pull them up?
I honestly did not see them or take a look, but if you want to throw it up there real quick, I'm sure we could.
Yeah.
I don't think that they was attached to the meeting request.
I think I sent it in a separate email, but can everybody see that?
Yes. Has everyone had a chance to take a look at those real quick?
Make a motion, we approve.
Motion approved by Bruce. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Pat, I believe. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Doesn't look like it. Say minutes passed.
There you go.
And I guess, Karen, the agenda for the meeting today is to go over the draft that you just sent for the cost of services study. Maybe I'm not seeing the agenda either. I need to.
Did you want? Are you able to share that document? Is that what you wanted to do?
Honestly, I don't know if I saw like a meeting agenda either. That probably was with the minutes, and if there's something else that you all wanted to discuss.
I think that this draft came this afternoon. So it
Yes. The draft came this afternoon, but it was on the agenda to discuss the specific action in our 5-year plan that this RFP is part of.
Yeah, so I pulled it up on the screen, and I can explain it if you guys would like me to.
Yes, please.
Okay, give me just a second. Sorry, I know that she was wanting to be here. Okay, so we talked a little bit about the cost of services last, and one of the suggestions that if we had a vendor that would come in and collect data directly from the waste collectors, scrub it of any information that is down to the individual level, or would show which hauler was charging what, if all that was scrubbed out, and then they was able to give us data on a zip code level, that would be probably the most accurate and best way to do this. However, the 5-year plan gave us, fairly general way to do this. And I think that this RFP, the way that I've drafted it, can allow us to do it in several different ways. And Anyway, let me go through it. Now, keep in mind, this is a rough cut and there probably needs to be quite a few changes on it. But we can kind of go through it today and we can clean it up somewhat. So
Pete, can you make that image a little bigger?
I can, if it helps. Tell me when
Much
it gets.
better.
Okay. So this first section up here is the exact same language that we used for the capture rate study. So I'm going to assume that there isn't really any issues with that. The same for this place right here, the first paragraph under background. This is exactly the same from that capture rate study RFP as well. And I think at that time we discussed that we would like to include that in just about every RFP that we do. So I'm assuming that there won't be any issues with that. Now, to give background to this, I could have written a whole lot of stuff in here from the 5-year plan. But what I decided to do was to give a couple references for the bidders to go to get the full story without us having a 30-page specifications. And so there's a link. It takes, I'm referencing the 5-year plan, chapter 2, where we referenced this to be done for specific actions. And I also put in here a previous solid waste system evaluation study that was conducted in 2018, and that it's still available online. So it's basically, that's where any of our vendors are going to get their background information on the collection system, strengths, weaknesses, and our specific actions. The scope, the way I drew this up was I took language directly from the 5-year plan that had already been approved, and I molded it into what we're trying to do. One, the biggest thing, the biggest goal here is to determine if changing from a multi-hauler subscription-based collection to a single hauler contracted collection zones for single-family residential properties in unincorporated and uncontracted areas of the solid waste management area would provide service levels and cost per household for garbage, recycling, yard waste collection, bulky waste collection comparable to other contracted areas of the solid waste management area. Huge sentence, run on. I know all that. But does it have everything in there and is it effective? You can almost read that verbatim from the 5-year plan, except I added some context in there just to let people know what we were talking about. The second bullet point, I think is almost verbatim too. Determine to the extent possible the possible community benefits and detriments of creating a single hauler collected collection zones for single family residential properties and minimizing the inefficiencies of the multi-hauler subscription-based collection on public health, safety, damage to roads, and the environment. The third bullet point provides statistically significant data on existing service levels and costs per household at the zip code level. Vendors should also provide a summary of factors affecting cost of services for each or groups of zip codes. Provide a written recommendation for improving service levels and costs per household for services comparable to other contracted areas based upon the collected data. And the vendor would present findings and recommendations to the Waste Management District. So that is what we're looking for. We might be able to clean up the language a little bit, but based upon what we're trying to do there, does anybody see anything glaring and any issues in there that we need to be concerned about?
Do we define somewhere in the document, Pete, what a qualified firm is?
No, we're not. And I'm not sure. I mean, we are asking them later on to give us a statement of qualifications. So we're not telling them what it is, but they need to give us their qualifications and then we determine whether or not that they're qualified.
Good.
Any other concerns with the scope level and as far as the bullet points go? In seeking the proposals to conduct this study, the Waste Management District is providing an open opportunity for consulting firms to submit statement of qualifications, price estimates, and methodologies they think will deliver strong statistical significant results at the best possible cost. Vendors are invited to choose and submit which study methodology they propose to use, with supporting information on why and how that methodology will best deliver the desired data. So in other words, we're not telling them how to do it. We're going to let them tell us how they would do it. And I believe that to me, we did this with the capture rate study. And I think that we got a good proposal, but let's let their experience kind of help us determine which way that we need to go. We've not conducted one of these, but I'm sure that some of the firms that'll be bidding on this have done many, many, many of these. And they know the best methodologies to do. We don't have to accept it, but they can propose it. So we've kind of left it open for them to be able to do that. Required content of their proposals, they have to have their statement of qualifications. They have to have a summary of the vendor's understanding of the current collection system. I put that there because I want to ensure that they've done some homework and they understand what our system is, along with a proposed methodology and supporting information on why and how that methodology will best deliver the data. Examples of previous cost of service studies conducted by the bidder that can reasonably be expected by the Waste Management District. We want to see what they've done in the past, and then cost to conduct that study. And of course, the scoring proposal is, these are just numbers I threw up here. People have varying opinions on this, but 5% for qualifications, proposed methodology, 30%, examples of work, 30%, and 35% for cost of services. And basically that is the specifications part of the RFP. This goes into a boilerplate system for Metro, which is probably another 80 pages of details about how we have to do business. But this is really kind of the gist of what we want to go into the full RFP document. So, is there any questions about what I went over, and suggestions, concerns, recommended changes, comments?
Can I ask a
I
question,
guess
Pete?
I have a quick question. And that is, I understand why you've picked zip codes. You've got to have some kind of drawing of territory. But when you have a zip code that has every single thing in it in multiple different configurations, what are we looking for them to bring back to us as a final number?
In my vision for this, Sandra, and it's a good question, and I did choose zip codes because it was a boundary that is already established. Looking for the average cost and the types of services that are delivered within that zip code. I know that doesn't exactly fit for our community. And if there's a better way to do it, I am all ears. But I can tell you, as anybody that looks at a map of Louisville, Jefferson County, it is cut up. And I'm not sure if there's a better way to do it. If we If we want to take a look at a map and draw better boundaries, that's one
I-
possibility.
Yeah, I wasn't so much thinking that as we could end up with numbers that don't have meaning depending on the particular zip code, because the zip code could have different contracts. It could have people with individual contracts. It could have Metro picking up, and it could also have nothing being done. And so the overall average, I don't know what we do with it.
I think that's a good point. I think that when we want to take a look at this is in that first section. We want to see if what the unincorporated and uncontracted areas in contrast to the rest of the community looks like. That's what we're trying to find. Maybe if we better break out that data in saying that what it is in the urban services district versus, and then what it is for home rule cities as compared to the general unincorporated, uncontracted areas.
Or maybe if instead of having them, I mean, they can give us an average, that's fine. But if they find any severe deviations within that zip code from that average, if they give us that also.
Yeah, and I think that vendors should also provide a summary of factors affecting cost of services for each or groups of zip codes. Does that do it? Or do I need to be more specific?
I think I'd want to add some clauses. I'm not sure what they'd be right now. I think it says it, but it's, I don't want them to come back with babble and jargon to us. I want us to get something that we can actually do something with.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't help and right at the moment trying to frame it. Anyway, that was my only question. I think you,
Okay, look, I will continue to think about that. And see what we can do. I know that there were several other questions. Brandon?
Yeah, I didn't have a question about the substance of what you are trying to accomplish. It was just about the procurement scores. I just sort of saw 30, 30, 35, 5. And I was just wondering if you know how that compares against some similar sort of service contracts that procurement might has let in the past. I mean, obviously I think the qualifications of any vendor is obviously very important. And I don't know whether 10% versus 30% cost makes more sense. It's obviously up for this group to determine what percentage you want to weight to all these factors. But I was just wondering if you had any guidance from procurement itself as to what's sort of typical with respect to qualifications and cost.
Well, I have not went to procurement at this point without something that's a little bit more solid. And generally they give us guidance on what we have proposed, and we make adjustments based upon that. As far as in the past, we've not done a whole lot of these. And this is a totally different ballpark than going out and buying widgets, and I think that to me, the cost is not as important as getting a quality product in this regard. So that's why I put it the way that it is. If you have other opinions or different positions on that, I am totally open to hearing that argument.
I tend to agree that I think 35% is your cost is, to me, it's got to be a higher percentage than that. Just my general opinion. I think you could, like Brandon said, maybe take that examples of previous work related and knock it down to 10%. and throw the other 20 on your cost, or on cost, and make that because I think you're gonna get those qualifications, methodologies, previous, I mean, that stuff's should come in their proposal, without saying. I almost kind of think a little bit.
Well, and when I say this, don't, I mean, because I'm thinking out loud. I think that a lot of people can put together a low cost bid if we put that if we give that too much credence. We might not get a as good of a product. That would be my concern. Willing to hear other people's opinions on it as well, but I hear you. The cost isn't really important, but it's kind of trying to weigh a normal process versus trying to make sure that we get a quality product here. It's a trying to thread a needle a little bit.
Sorry, just
Peter,
real quick.
I would
I'm
agree.
not sure, Adam, that what I said and what you said are the same thing or not. I'm not sure we're agreeing what you, and I don't have a point. I just wanted to, for the group, just to find out whether or not those percentages were advised by procurement. So I don't have a position one way or the other.
Adam, when we're looking at this breakout of scoring of proposals, this is the same breakout we utilized when we evaluated the 2 proposals that we received for the capture rate study. And the quality of the proposals were basically like daylight and midnight with regard to the quality. One was a 3-page proposal that had very little meat on the bone, if you will. And the other one was a hand proposal that they've done it many times before. So they know what they're doing, and it's obvious that they've got a lot of background in it. So I think, cost and the actual quality of the proposal is paramount, that they be, awarded based off the work that they submit. If we're paying for it, we should get a good quality of work. And that's just my only comment on the subject matter, because I've never received the level of questions that he's asking the data on to run it up by legal to get guidance as to how and what I am able to comment on as a representative of the company. But I do think the percentages are fair.
Just real quick for Bruce, because I mentioned that I think that the best way to get the most accurate data would be to go directly to the waste haulers and try to scrub the data from what they give. This is also made to where it could be done using mail surveys and whatever other methodology that they can use, not using the haulers. So this does not mean that we have to do it either way. That's kind of the way that I did it. So I think it's prudent upon your part to continue the legal review from your position. But it doesn't mean that that's the way that we're going to go. I just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you.
I think Matt had something.
Pete, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, my only thing was back whenever Adam was talking there, I think leaving your cost lower is better because you will get the flexibility to get the work product that you want. I've had issues the other way when I focused only on cost. I didn't get the work product that I wanted. And then it cost me twice as much because I had to do it twice.
Yeah.
It's kind of like an attorney. Are you want to save $50 an hour on your attorney, or do you want him to get you out of the court case? Which one you really focused on?
I think Morgan has a hand up.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
So I'm Morgan. I work for GBB. I'm a solid waste consultant. I do have a question with regards to the cost. Do you have a cost in mind, especially because it is 35% of the overall score right now?
Well, welcome, first off. Are you, I guess I'm a little cautious if you're a potential bidder.
That's fair.
Yeah, no, not at this time. I don't think that we have a budget in mind.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, concerns? So I can go back into this, and I think that we had a really valid point about the data here. And I think I can go back and do a little bit more research into that. I can go more detail. I can see myself going two different ways. More detail as to what we want, or letting the vendor give us the detail based upon what they know. And I would say that if we put this out, we would definitely want to have a meeting with bidders so that we can have a little bit of a back and forth about this so that we can ensure that we're going to get what we want. Does anybody have an opinion on whether I should go more detailed or let the vendor bring it to us? And I'll take that to Sandra first because she was the one that brought the concern up, which I think is legit.
I think that you can go both ways. I think that you can offer the option for them to tell us. But I get very concerned with consultants very often using jargon words that when you try to work with those words, they have no meaning. And I wouldn't like them to say, this is a very diverse zip code. I want to know why that zip code has numbers that are all over the place, because then the average doesn't talk. Do you know what I'm saying? So
Yes.
I think they can tell us something, but I want them to tell us something real. I don't want it to be a globalization of something.
Are specific zip codes that you have in mind, or I mean,
Oh, I know I could do, I can't pop them off, but just the one I live in is like that. It's got everything in it. And while it might come out more homogeneous, let's say, than some of the others, that average may not be real in terms of us trying to make a more efficient system. And I think there are a number of zip codes throughout the county there.
I agree.
Could you maybe explain more what the intent was behind that point? Like, could we just do it per city rather than per zip code? Like, what are we trying to get at there?
So, and I know that this map probably doesn't help a whole lot. Give me just a second. Maybe I can make it a little bit better. Okay, so the goal here is, let me turn off we have all the small cities. Many of those already contract, and they're getting a certain level of service and they're getting those services at a certain cost. The Urban Services District is the same way. It's a little bit different system that we mentioned because it's a municipal system and it's built into a tax system, and it's not as easy to pull those numbers out. What we want to do is take a look at all of these areas outside of here and compare the level of service and the cost of services with the other two. To see if there's a better, if we can, to see where those service levels are as compared and what it costs. The difference being really that these are, and I go back to the word that I used early, is a organized system of one hauler within a geographical region, and they provide services, all of the services within that defined area.
I guess when I look at this map, one of the things, I wish you could impose zip codes on it. Because if the zip code were to pick up the Urban Services District, an unincorporated area with no services, and a city that has a contract, that average should help.
Could you look at the zip codes in relation to this map and then determine which specific zip codes you really feel like that you really want to study? I mean, so that way you could even include the exact zip codes you wanted in the study?
Maybe. I can't, unfortunately, on this map,
Put zip codes.
I can't pull up the zip codes. If you give me a minute, I could probably find one that does that, but I don't know if it has this. So give me just a second. Let me see if I can't do that. And this is open. If anybody's not seen this, this is open to anybody that wants to do this. It's going to look crazy because I've been here before. See, it's not really giving us all the other things that we want.
But just looking at this, like Sandra is saying, like 40216 Shively, well, a good portion of that zip code is going to be covered, I guess, by the city of Shively, but then there's another portion of that zip code that's not covered there. So that may not be a zip code you want to choose. But then if you look at 258, 272, those appear to be not encumbered by any other in the Urban Services District or any other place. Maybe you could go through and pick out the specific zip codes you're interested in.
I think that's a really good idea. If I can pick those out, trying to stay sort of away from
Well, the only trouble, if you pick those out, whatever we come up with in the future for a direction would not include the ones you've left out. So it depends on what your ultimate goal is. If your ultimate goal is only those areas, that's one thing. But if your ultimate goal is broader than that, we're going to have to look at everything.
So if, unfortunately, the zip codes overlap small cities, Urban Services District, just like Adam was saying, 40216, part of that is Shively, part of it is unincorporated area and uncontracted area. If I can take a look and I can work with our GIS team to pull out pull out just the unincorporated area. And that would be the place that we would say this is, this is one section. Then we can have the home rule cities and the urban services district separate from those. And then you can kind of get that comparison where I think we really kind of want to go. Let me see if I can do that and get with our GIS team to do that.
If you do, will you share it? Because I'll be amazed.
Yeah, I will. And I'm sure that our GIS team can do it. And then in fact, if there was going to be a mail survey, they would be able to carve out everything that was not what we're looking at. And they'd be able to pull out every address within there. And they would actually be able to pull out commercial properties. They would be able to pull out industry and all of that and just leave us with residential properties. The only place that it gets a little bit tricky in there is that I don't know where HOAs are that are contracted.
But there's an HOA association. We might be able to talk to them.
Oh, I wasn't aware that there was an HOA association.
I think that we'd have to ask around, but I think that they at least there may not include everybody, but there is something that provides information. HOA.
Well, I would have to have the boundaries of the HOA, but I don't know that it wouldn't be something that Bruce, you tell me if this would be something that the privates would do. If I sent a request to say, what HOAs do you have under contract? Not anything else at this point, but what HOAs do you have under contract in Jefferson County? We can at least identify what HOAs, if all of the haulers participate, and maybe even be able to carve those out. Is that something that you guys can do, Bruce?
I'll submit it to corporate to get an answer, Pete. I can't answer on behalf of the company.
I understand. So I can carve it out as best as I can carve it out and see what we come up with. And I can get back with you guys on that. And I can also work on the language, Sandra, in that one section to better delineate what we're after. And while we do carve out all of this area that we considered unincorporated and uncontracted, I still think that we would want to subdivide that into certain areas. And the reason I'm saying that is because some areas that may be unincorporated, such as Pleasure Ridge Park, and some of 40216, their density of households is pretty high as compared as compared to 423, where the density is going to be a lot less. Density is going to play in a pretty big role because the truck cost of services is going to be directly related to how far the truck has to drive in between each pickup. So density is a measure of, if you have a cost that's higher in that area and you have a low density, well, it's probably because of that density. Whereas if you have an area that's very dense as compared to every place else that's in the contracted area, you can kind of see a little bit, if the price is high or lower, then you understand why. Does that make sense? Okay, so I think I have some takeaways to work on with this. And unless anybody has anything else on that, and if that's what you guys want me to do, then I will get to work on that. Any comments, suggestions? Okay.
Question, Pete.
Yes, sir.
You had made a comment that you want to tie this together with the capture rate study. Are we holding up the capture rate study until we can get this ironed out? Or what is the intent?
No, the only tie into that is I've used some of the same language in the RFP. The capture rate, I think that we're having a little bit of technical difficulty in getting it completely scored. But we're working on that. It's a how access to the system type of the situation. So hopefully once we get that, it'll move along a little bit quicker. But I know that our IT department is working on the issue.
Thank you.
If we still have a few minutes, I know it's not necessarily on the agenda, but I do have a couple other things to discuss with the committee, just for general knowledge and FYI. If that's okay, Adam, is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. One is we're working on an agreement with the University of Louisville and the Department of Energy to work on battery recycling. And it's not totally firmed up yet, but it's a grant. And our goal is to do a better job at creating a sorting technology, which sorting of batteries is a very big deal, particularly with the lithiums and things like that, so that we can kind of make sure that we reduce hazard, specifically with fire. And then also looking at a potential recycling technology that's better than what we have out there today, that would break things down into much safer ingredients for transportation. So that's an exciting thing. I'm not sure where we're going to be at. I've given some information over to the process, but I can't really get into a whole lot about it. But I think it's exciting because I can tell you right now that the alkaline batteries that we accept at the has-been is almost 25% of the cost of the has-been. And, you know, it's $1.15 a pound to recycle alkaline batteries. You get very little recycled product out of it. You have, in 1990 something, the EPA required certain metals to be taken out of those alkaline and zinc batteries that would make them okay to landfill. So we have a benefit versus cost situation with that being so much and so costly, versus the cost of operating has went up massively through our last bid process. And just looking at cost, this came along right at the same time. And if we can work this out, I think that this may help us defray some of that. So I think it's worth going after. So there's that on the batteries. And did want to update on the capture rate study that we're still working on it. And we're going to be going that way soon, I hope. And the last thing is on the C&D RFP that we talked about letting from the 5-year study. We are starting, based upon this committee recommendation, we're starting a subcommittee. We have a meeting scheduled right now with some of the players. That includes some members of the committee, as well as industry associations and members of public works that deal with road construction and RFPs that go out. So I'm hopeful that we're going to be able to get into that. And I think we're also going to include, hopefully, someone from Cedra, the Construction and Demolition Recycling Association out of Chicago. I can't remember her name, but she was really helpful to us. And hopefully we can include her in that, as well as getting everybody signed up to be a member of Cedra. So that's my updates. And I know we got 10 minutes, but I'll take any questions on those topics if I can answer them.
Pete, what is the offending constituent that has to be removed in order to landfill these batteries?
Well, I think it's already been removed. I don't know exactly, but and I'm not sure it was just one, but I think it was mercury. I can't say that for sure, Pat. Don't hold me to that. But it seemed like it was in 1996 that they required it. And over a certain period of time, all of that stuff is supposed to have been removed, making alkalines okay to landfill.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I will say this as another part of this. We discussed this at the 109 board, and there's concern that if we was to say that don't bring us any more alkaline batteries, they can be landfilled, that we run afoul of another industry issue, which is the presence of lithium batteries getting into waste and recycling because they are sparking fires in trucks and processing facilities. And so you see some of those in the news now where a lithium battery fire started and or the suspected. I know that there's been several in Louisville that were the fires were knocked down really quick, but they believe that they were the result of lithium ion batteries. So we're worried that if we change our messaging that we have now, that we could exacerbate that problem because people will just get frustrated and just throw them all into the garbage or the recycling, and then things are just worse. So we're just going to take a look at this proposal first before we make any other decisions. It could be that we just decided that we would still accept them, but instead of paying to recycle them, we would end up landfilling them ourselves. So that's what we talked about at the 109 board. And other than that, I guess we got about 8 minutes of time before the next meeting. So if no other questions, I guess we can call the meeting to be adjourned.
If no other questions or comments, I'd like to, or would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Matt,
All those in favor?
Aye.
I guess the motion carries.
motion carries. Meeting adjourned.
All right. See y'all in just a few.
See
Thanks.
you all. Thank you.
So.